Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a video, and some of you are asking lately, Greg, where's the animations? That's all I subscribe for, where are they? And the answer to that is kind of complicated. I punched up an explanation for this like last month, and my thought was that I would write out all the technical reasons for what's going on with YouTube and what am I thinking, and it wound up being like 4 pages of information, and there was no way I was going to condense that down, so I gave up on it. And I haven't really been doing much of anything on YouTube lately, and it feels like getting away from an abusive, like, spouse? Something like that? I just feel much happier not having to look at this stupid platform. So in a nutshell, fuck YouTube. Now, what's actually going on? Now, basically, the thing is that YouTube is a terrible platform. Like, most of what's popular today, like a lot of big YouTubers, in my opinion, are just total losers. Like, there's not really a lot of effort going into a lot of the top content unless it's branded and it's paid for by some third party. A lot of top YouTubers don't have any talents, they don't have any skills, they're not growing anything. You're seeing like analysts and people doing reviews just all the time, but they don't own that intellectual property and they're not developing any skills. And if YouTube changes their algorithm and they're not going to get promoted next week, then, they don't move on to another job in the media because they have no media related skills. And they say that making these vlogs that they do is a lot of work, but I've done vlogs, I've done a lot of different things, and as far as work goes, it's on the low end. It's really easy to do, and that's why so many people do them. And point is, bottom line, YouTube is not really a place that I want to be a part of so much, and I feel a little embarrassed sometimes when I tell people what I do. Like, they ask, what do you do? And I'd like to say, like, well, I'm a cartoonist, or like, well, I'm an animator, or something like that. I oftentimes didn't want them to think that I was a YouTuber, because then they'd see in their head Logan Paul, or PewDiePie, or the Elsa Spider-Man stuff, or something like that. But the real issue here, though, is that YouTube has become kind of a flaming garbage barge with a lot of really trashy content on it, and it's what YouTube wants. Like, this is the stuff that YouTube is promoting because their spam approach to things nets them the most amount of ad revenue. They just look for the longest possible video that will keep you on the platform for the longest amount of time, so they can show you the most ads possible. And that's sort of the whole strategy. Unfortunately, animators don't really jive with that. Every now and then I check up on the news on YouTube, and you're seeing that everyone who's trying to really grow something on YouTube, who doesn't fit within certain formats, or who's not exploiting an IP that's already successful away from the platform, those people are all failing. There are some notable exceptions, like, for example, like Lucas the Spider is doing really well, even though it's a very sort of non-YouTube kind of video, since it's not like modern YouTube. There's a reason why Lucas the Spider is doing well, and I could go into it. You also see occasionally like a few really neat things that pop up, maybe like every now and then, but there's really not a whole lot of stuff, not like there used to be. There's not very much cool content on the site anymore. So, the conclusion that I've come to is that if I want to grow an audience, and things are really just getting worse for me, as far back as in July, I think, it's been even further back. I think after the last Rainbow Dash Presents video, they changed the algorithm, and the channel has really just been dying, and I've been watching what works for other people, and it's stuff that I just don't want to do, because I'd rather work on things that require skill and practice and training, and to say that I have come away, more of a person than when I started. But the point is, though, is that for me to be promoted on YouTube, I'd have to either do some really unsavory things and get really exploitative and break a lot of like civil laws. We could do prank videos, guys. We could do video review. I'll review the My Little Pony movie, because this channel's already about that. And then I'll make another channel and I'll review whatever Star Wars. I'll tell you what I think about Star Wars. I'll do a vlog every single day. And we'll compete with some of these other brony analysts or whatever who got off the pony thing when that started to die down and just moved on into the next schlock. But what I've decided to try out, and what has produced some interesting results, is I've been starting work on a comic called Stebe Boy Hotdog. I know that one person actually recognized my screen name, and they're like, is this done somewhere? Is in the YouTube channel done somewhere? But Stebe Boy Hotdog is kind of this weird, surreal tale about a boy in a hot dog suit, and I've been posting it on different websites just to see reaction to it, you know, just to get off of YouTube for a little while, and also to practice my art skill. And so one thing blew me away. I posted Stebe Boy Hotdog, and people wanted to see more. You know, like these were people who had never heard of me before, totally fresh eyeballs, they don't know anything about my work, and they really liked what I was doing. They were like, post more, like this is weird, show me what you're doing, where you going with this, guy? So that was a refreshing feeling, because YouTube has kind of had me in a little box. I've been insulated from new viewers for such a long time that it felt really good to have new people seeing just anything that I was doing, even though Stebe was really just art practice. But then I just kept posting Stebe, and I got more and more viewers, and with every post, so long as I was putting in the tags and everything else like that correctly, I was getting like more upvotes and more viewers. People were starting to actually like follow Stebe. And so now I'm posting Stebe on Webtoons. I throw them up there on Imgur whenever I have a new update. I've been putting it on Funny Junk on occasion. Trying my best not to spam those places because, you know, there's lots of interesting content on there, and it seems to be, it works even while being polite. Like the volume trick, I don't know if that's really good or bad, but it works on more of an upvote system. So there's kind of a human interaction that you don't get on YouTube. So, Stebe Boy Hotdog, if you guys want to go check that out, it's on Webtoons. There's a link to that in the description, and you can kind of see what's going on. You can tell that from the first page, there's already improvement, you know, compared to the most recent page, and I continue to improve, and I'm trying to do better and better at my art. And what this can translate into is that later on I might come back and my plan is to continue doing animations. It'll just be like a little bit later down the line once I've got some buffer room with Stebe and some of this other production stuff is out of the way. But let's get to that. So Stebe Boy Hotdog worked, the comic concept worked, and you guys may be familiar that I work with Pencils. He does backgrounds for us and stuff and character concepts on occasions. There's a bunch of little odds and ends that Pencils has done with the channel over the past year or two. I'm not sure exactly how long Pencils has been hanging out with us. I'm really bad at judging time. But anyway, though, Pencils has been hanging out with us for a good while. He's done a lot of our backgrounds and things like that. And Pencils really loves comics. So what he was already doing before he started working on the IDW comic was he was doing a semi-intelligent series that was going to be kind of like a companion piece to the semi-intelligent cartoon that I was working on, which, by the way, is almost done. And then we were going to release the two together, and it was going to be kind of like, here's the video, but then here's this actual like story, so you guys can get a better feel for the characters through this medium. So Pencils has been working through that, and if you've tabbed out, I'll just throw this up on the screen so you can kind of get a look at that. This isn't done, but Pencils is still working on that. And then what I've decided that in light of the fact that we can actually find people to look at our stuff, new people to look at our stuff with comics, I'm going to have Copy's actually already started working on a comic called Kit's Orphanage, which is about this orphanage owned by this guy named Kit, and there's this kid Benny, and so on and so forth. It's, you know, don't worry about it. You'll see when it goes up. But anyway, though, Copy is working on that, and she's already got a couple of sketches put together, and pretty soon, once she's got a few pages of this, and we have a backlog for her to work off of, so she has some wiggle room and freedom to also do her own stuff, I'm going to start uploading this regularly. So Stebe is Stebe, but Kit's Orphanage is going to be our actual first foray into comics, and then when Pencils has time, we're going to post the semi-intelligent thing as well. So we're going to transition over to a lot of comics, and we're going to see if we can build up an audience using comics, because apparently new people will look at comics, or rather there are websites that are actually interested in comics. And the real advantage here with comics is that, unlike YouTube, you have to have some sliver of talent to do comics. You have to be able to write, and you have to be able to draw, like at least a little bit. For webcomics, the bar is not like insanely high. You don't have to be Michelangelo or anything like that. But being more skilled helps. The more aesthetically pleasing your art is, and the faster you can work while still looking really good, the better off you are. With YouTube, you know, you're constantly competing with like vloggers and whatever. The objective is to saturate YouTube with the greatest quantity of trash possible, and an animator is never ever gonna beat those guys. I mean, like, this was the sentiment. Like, there was a car channel that recently shut down. They were getting funding from outside YouTube. They were like a network-funded car channel, and they've recently folded up shop because the guys who were in charge of it, they said, we can't compete with vloggers. Like, we just can't post as much content as vloggers. Everyone can do vlogs. Like, on YouTube, you're competing with basically everyone who has an internet connection and a camera. Sometimes not even people who have cameras. It's so easy to do the type of YouTube video that YouTube will promote these days. But webcomics, they're small. There's lots of webcomics still, but it's not as much of a thicket of just, vomit, if I can put it any other way. So what can happen is, if we're fortunate and we build up an audience with these comics that we're working on, then that'll give us a reason to come back and do animations again. Because we'll have people who will actually watch the animations, and we won't be relying on YouTube to promote anything that we do, which is really, really important because YouTube's not promoting anything that we do right now. The channel is basically dead in the water. We've been contracting for a while, like I say, as far back as the last Rainbow Dash Presents episode. That didn't bring in any new viewership. The system has changed so much that basically there's just no way that we're going to grow with the system that we have. And in fact, one thing that's really upsetting is I think that if I just released 4 vlogs a week, I would be earning the same amount of ad revenue as I get from the animation schedule that I was doing. It's just incredibly disheartening being on YouTube. Like, J Cartoons pulled in about 8,000 views every single week. And then I released Alphabet Parade, and that got about 8,000 views. And then there was the Grand Theft Auto thing, and that got like 8,000 views. Everything gets kind of the same amount of viewership. And I know that whatever I did, if something succeeds on YouTube, I either don't really have the rights to it, it's potentially illegal, or it's just going to be really scummy. And when I started doing YouTube, I'm not one of those people that really craves attention. Like, I like parties. I enjoy being around people. I like hanging out with people. I like going to the cons and meeting you guys. But I'm gonna be honest, like, when I get in an environment where I'm surrounded by people for too long, or I'm getting too much attention, I get a little stressed out, and I like to go outside and just be in the quiet for a little while. I'm not the type that, like, pathologically needs to be surrounded by people and that needs to be the center of attention all the time. And I feel like that's what modern YouTube is really all about, is people who just constantly need to be validated and surrounded by other humans, and who are just craving as much attention as they can possibly get, and they don't care what it's for or why they have it. It doesn't matter if it's destructive to them, the reasons that they get their attention. They just really want the attention, and that's why they're happy doing the kind of content that works on this site right now. Like I say, there's exceptions. There's things that are, cooler than some of the other things, but more and more often these days, whenever I see a YouTube video that I really like, it's got less than 100,000 views, it feels like, anymore. There's no future on this website, at least not for the type of thing that I want to do, not for the type of thing that I want to be. So that's why there haven't been any animations. Now there's the question, am I going to keep doing animations, and when will I get back on these animations? Well, I'm going to finish off the semi-intelligent animations. That's got a lot of work already done, and it's very close to being done. The Grand Theft Auto animation is also almost done, and I quit working on that because it was, towards the end of that production. I don't know, I was just starting to lose confidence in everything. YouTube had a way of just bringing me down. It got me to start thinking, like, what if I was never creative? What if I was just a product of a stupid computer algorithm, and nothing I've ever done was ever actually clever? I mean, look at the people who are on the top of this system. Very few of them are actually clever. And a lot of them, they hire people once they get to the top. Once they get enough money, they hire people to be clever on their behalf. They might be terrible musicians or it's, mediocre or whatever. And then they get to the top and they just hire people to ghostwrite for them. So I thought, like, what if all along I was just another one of these hacks on YouTube? And I don't know, it's hard to work in that environment. And like I say, it's refreshing to be doing something else, anything else, whatever it is, and just seeing that people are interested in it. You know, I may not be the best artist, but at least the concept of Stebe is weird enough to pull people in and to have them follow it actively and ask to see more and tell me that they really like the comic. You know, they're like sharing it with people. Like, I'm getting comments that are like, oh, I showed this to so-and-so, my so-and-so, and then now they're watching this too. So yes, as far as things that we're doing, the comics are currently what we're focusing a lot of our production time into, and then we'll come back and we'll do animations when there's free time, and the animations are going to underperform. I assume that this video about the state of the channel right now probably going to get, I mean, I would be surprised if it got more than 20,000 views. Most people aren't even being notified of any videos that I release anymore. The subscribers, like, I've got 180,000 subscribers, and no one is notified of anything that I do. YouTube doesn't bother showing them because they're like, oh, people would get mad. And you know what? If people get mad about the stuff I post, then they should unsubscribe. You know, don't just quit notifying them, because then they have to go and check in on their own, and nobody checks in on their own, so pretty soon you just, like, if YouTube is not cooperating with you, if YouTube is not promoting you, you are going to die. So, we're dying here, and it doesn't matter what I do, doesn't matter what kind of animation I put out, there's no way that I can hit these metrics by doing this sort of thing. Now, people talk about Jaden animations and, like, Odd Ones Out and whatever, and those guys are actually just vloggers. The type of stuff they do, it's not really animation, it's more like storyboarding, and then they use, like, smear frames. It's kind of similar to Rainbow Dash Presents, but it's actually far, far lower effort. They don't have to do backgrounds, and the characters are even easier to draw and everything else like that. You know, this whole thing is part of why Pederup kind of got away from everything, was because he wanted to get to be a better artist. And to do that, he had to kind of get into a industry that allowed art to be practiced. He got really good really quickly with the whole Rainbow Dash Presents thing, but there's just not enough revenue to really support working really hard for a really long time and then releasing your thing, especially now in the system where working for a really long time actually tanks your channel. In fact, as I speak to you now, looking at my analytics, I recently just lost 2,000 viewers a day. And you know what that is? It's not that, like, everybody suddenly lost interest in me. It's that the algorithm lost interest in me. I can actually look at, like, audience sources, and I'm just being recommended to 2,000 fewer people every day because the channel hasn't updated frequently enough. So, it's hell. It's miserable. YouTube is just garbage. I hate everything about it. I felt really good about not doing anything for YouTube for this little while. And I understand if you guys are a little bit heartbroken because you really wanted to see more animations from me. You know, like I say, this is just kind of the way it is. Patreon was helping, but it was kind of like a life preserver, just keeping me afloat in an ocean. You know, there was still a lot of kicking water that I was doing, and I was getting really tired. I was never on time with anything. Technically speaking, I don't know the last time I've really had vacation time. Usually if I take time off, then things would just not be done, and then things would fall behind. It's really demanding, it's really rough, it's really terrible. You know, I'm not one of those people that are saying that you know, stress wasn't killing me, but it's definitely not something that I see as being sustainable, especially because my wife is pregnant. We've got a baby on the way, and in a few more months, I'm gonna have a lot of responsibilities that I'm gonna have to address. And you know, YouTube doesn't even really want me. You know, YouTube doesn't feel like it needs people like me. YouTube wants and feels like it needs people like PewDiePie and Logan Paul and Jake Paul and Rice Gum and Leafy is here and just, you know, that's what YouTube is about. And I can't throw my life away to try and fit a mold that just wants to be about people like that. So, apologies for those of you who weren't sure what was going on. I have been posting all over the place about this, not to the direct channel. But like I say, I'm really skeptical that a whole lot of people are going to see the video anyway, just because that's how YouTube works. But I guess at this point, I'll have pretty much put up the news everywhere. One last thing is, because I know that some of you guys really, really like those Let's Plays, I'm thinking that when I'm done with the scripting for Kit's Orphanage, which is actually turning out to be a really long script, I will go back to doing Let's Plays, but I'm just going to do them like short form. I don't plan to have the Let's Plays succeed. Like, I don't care if anything does well on YouTube anymore, because like I say, whatever does well on YouTube, I won't own it. It won't really be high skill work. It won't be something that I've built myself up to do. It'll just be stuff that I'm capable of pretty much now. at my baseline, like maybe a little bit of improvement to my voice acting, maybe a little improvement to my editing, you know, any effort I go to improve the videos is just wasted time. Like I said, there was a huge, long technical explanation, but this video has already been on long enough, and if you guys want to understand the technical reasons why YouTube is just so miserable, and why it's such a bad idea to work hard on this site, or to work seriously, man, I could give you an hour lecture on how and why it's just not gonna pan out. So yes, I'm really optimistic about this comic thing. Like I said, go check out the Stebe thing. I wish that I had the other comics to go through now, but like I said, I was planning to do this video earlier, and I was encouraged to do this video now because it's been a while and people are wondering what's going on. You know, I apologize for leaving you all in the dark for so long. I'll post another update, I guess, on when Kit's available. It's gonna be soon. Kit's gonna be available soon. Couple more weeks, and we'll be good for Kit. And I'll post an update when that comes out, and you guys can start watching Kit. If you want to check out Stebe, Stebe actually takes like 2 days for me to draw one of those comics. It's not like I've decreased how much work that I do. It's just that I've switched over to a system that has like more concrete, discrete units of work. So if I plan to be done with X thing like in the following time frame, then it's way more practical than trying to like do an animation once a week. So yeah. Stebe's been fun. Stebe's been interesting. I have like a bunch of notes on where I'm going with Stebe. If you guys don't like Stebe, then Kit's Orphanage is coming out. It's more structured. Copy's a better artist than me. It's gonna be more aesthetically pleasing. I think you guys are gonna really like. I'm really happy with the script for Kit, so I think you guys are gonna really like Kit. And then Semi-Intelligent. As soon as Pencils has time to get back on that. Pencils is just an amazing artist. I know that a lot of you guys are probably familiar with him already, but he's great. It's looking great. I'm really looking forward to when Semi-Intelligent is going to be ready to release. And so if you love our sense of humor and if you love the stuff we do, we're still doing stuff and we'll continue to do things. But yeah, YouTube is just in a nosedive. It's a tailspin, and the only way to pull out of it is to do the type of video that YouTube wants to do. And I don't want to do YouTube video. I don't want to be a YouTuber. I want to be an entertainer. So I hope that you guys will continue to follow stuff that we do and continue to be entertained by us. And that's what I really want. It's not the constant attention and the need for validation. I mean, I'd like to be validated somewhat, everybody would, but the desire to be a skilled entertainer is kind of what I want to say. Like when people ask me what I do, I want to say like I make things that people really like, you know, that people are kind of impressed with. I want to say that I inspire people, that they look at things that I do and they say like, man, I really want to do that too. Like, that's something that's so cool. I want to do that. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, those of you who we managed to snag with this. I suppose that's it. If you guys have any comments or questions or whatever, I mean, like, I probably spend a lot more time dwelling on what's going on with Done Somewhere and what we're doing than you might imagine. I'm a worrier by nature. I worry about things all the time. So if you guys have thoughts, comments, things that you want to share, I do read all the comments. I do care what you guys think. Let me know. I will read it. I do consider it. And otherwise, thanks for keeping up with this. I guess one last thing, I should plug the Patreon. We have been bleeding out on patrons a little bit. The Stebe thing is something that not everybody signed up for. I think more people put more value on animations than they do on the comics because the animations move. Stebe doesn't move. Also, Stebe's artwork isn't great because I'm the one drawing it. But Yes, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, if you're concerned about seeing us still going, and you're hoping for the future where maybe we do some of these comics and then come back and make animations of the comics, then that would help us out a lot. But otherwise, for those of you who left because this isn't what you signed on for, I understand. I appreciate all your support and you being with us for as long as you have. It really does mean a lot that we've been able to do as much as we have for as long as we have, and I'd like to keep doing stuff, but like I say, the data shows that everything's in a downward trend, and so something has to change. We got to do something. I got to figure out this system, and I'm hopeful about this comic thing. I'm optimistic about it. So yeah, thanks for joining me, everybody. You all have a great day.